Hey team, this is the Innovation Inc. podcast, and I'm your host, Liz Brown Evans. We sit down with our favorite entrepreneurs and nerd out on anything that involves innovation in the corporate space. So if you work for a corporate company, but you think like an entrepreneur, we're your people, and we're really excited you're here. Before we jump in, a huge thank you to our sponsor and Inc. 5000 company, Apex Software. They create powerful custom software, websites, and mobile apps that take your business's innovative ideas and turn them into realities. Reach out today to get a quote at apexsoftware.com. All right, everyone, let's get to it. Hey guys, it's Liz. You're about to listen to our newest episode with Landon Borders of Bullard. They are one of the oldest companies in Lexington, founded in 1898. They manufacture personal protective equipment. But here's why I think you'll love it. Landon's got really interesting experience, works for Big Ass Fans, works for Bullard now, a really young, high growth company to a very established, successful company. You're going to love it. And last thing I'll leave you with, there are a few times I have been as scared and potentially embarrassed professionally as I was in this episode, but it was too funny to cut out. So I'm going to let you listen to that treat. Have fun, guys. Today, we've got with us Landon Borders of Bullard. We are accidentally bringing in quite a few Big Ass Fan alumni, so I'm excited about. We've got a couple other friends, it sounds like, that we're bringing on back to back. But Landon has been a really big supporter of Innovation Incubated / Venture Labs from the get-go. He sits on our corporate innovation roundtable. He's worked with big, small, startup companies, you name it. So Landon, I'll let you get us started, give us a little bit of your experience, and we'll get into it.
Hey, thanks for having me. Glad to be here. My experience, well, let's see. I've spent about 20 years in product development in various companies, starting at Lexmark, making all-in-one printers. I worked there for several years, came to Bullard, working on safety equipment from long-wave infrared thermal imaging cameras, which are amazing products, to respirators. I was enticed by this company here in town called Big Ass Fans. They were doing some really cool things, kind of a startup. And I went to go work for them, did a lot of fun stuff, introducing IoT products, working in product management and R&D, and eventually wound up back at Bullard. They invited me to come back and lead the product development group, which I obliged, and we've been on kind of a growth trajectory over these last several years. So that's me in a nutshell, I guess.
I like it. So it sounds like you are good or bad friends, depending on the day, with Alex Reed, which if you're joining today, go back and listen to one of our previous episodes. Alex, formerly also with Big Ass, went on to found Truman's and exited recently. Really interesting story. We're interviewing a couple interesting people who used to be at Big Ass, are now at different companies. So I would love to dig in a little bit into kind of what we made Alex do. Let's talk about what your experience was like at Big Ass Fans, and then get into maybe how that compares in interesting ways with Bullard now. So again, I would really encourage people to go back and listen to what Alex had to say. So build off a little bit of that. What, man, Big Ass Fans is a whole mood of innovation. What was it like working there?
Yeah, and this might be awkward. I don't know who Alex Reed is.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, sorry. No, I'm totally kidding. Alex is a good friend of mine. I wish people could see the reaction on Liz's face right now. My eyes just bugged out of my head. Did you put him up to that? No.
I'm glaring at Garrett.
No, Alex, I love that guy. Hopefully he's not listening to hear me talk about him in that way, but he's a great guy, great friend.
We need to walk around the block before we keep going.
Yeah, and he was a great colleague at Big Ass Fans. So, okay, when I got to Big Ass, it was in 2014.
Okay.
And we were on kind of this growth pattern. It was really, we really wanted to grow the top line, and it was kind of an all costs scenario. So we knew that we had great brand equity, right? We had great customers. We were, when I got there, really trying to get into the home and really trying to get into the Internet of Things and be a thought leader in that space, which is where I spent a lot of time. Partnering with Alex, I was on more of the R&D product development side. He was on more of the marketing side. So we were partners in crime through a lot of this. But So where to begin, right? So I think back and I think about being on the front end of innovation and getting into the Internet of Things space, right? It was kind of the buzzword back then. There was a lot of interest in that. There was lots of large acquisitions, most notably the Nest acquisition by Google for $2.3 bazillion or something crazy, right? We knew there was a lot of hype around that. But more importantly, we knew that we had a good product, we had a good brand, and we knew that we had a lot of opportunity to innovate. So the challenging part was there was no playbook, right? There was you couldn't go back and look at how somebody did this before or go copy somebody's homework and figure out how to make smart products or apps or what people really cared about in this space or some of the user experience challenges that you had, right? So there was a lot of learning. I'm sure on the outside looking in, it kind of looked like we knew what we were doing, but we didn't, right? We were just, we embraced kind of a fail fast mentality, and we were very passionate and nimble, and we launched a lot of really cool products. The first smart fan, we had a smart light that we had launched, some controls, some app interfaces. We didn't know anything about apps, right? We were just kind of winging it.
I mean, you said 2012, 2014. These are
right.
That was at the beginning.
Right.
Things are just getting started.
Yeah, that's right. So, but you know what? We did have some really good friends. I talked about Nest earlier. We had a really good partnership with them, and that provided some inroads for us to join Thread Group, which was a really cool wireless technology that was really designed for the home and connected devices. So I served on the board of directors for Thread Group with the likes of Nest, with the likes of ARM, and some of these other giant technology companies. Wow. And here we are. What are we doing? Like, we're big ass fans
right?
From Kentucky. We've got some cool use cases, right? But I think when I look back on that, I think they saw us as kind of that startup that had some cool use cases, that had a lot of upside and opportunity, and that's why they really embraced us. But the point of that is just that it provided a lot of inroads into to meeting folks in Google and folks over at Amazon and really becoming kind of thought leaders in that space. So here we are, this small company that was making ceiling fans to now kind of thought leaders in the IoT space and running around Silicon Valley with these folks. So it was a ton of fun doing that. As you might imagine, in that environment, things were just changing so rapidly, right? We had our big fan business, which was the heart and soul of the company that was really funding a lot of this. And we had this new residential products that we were introducing and launching and growing, but we wanted to get into this space. We wanted to get into that space, right? And our owner had this passion, I guess, for R&D and for the extraordinary, and so I had the opportunity to work in this R&D space, kind of this kind of we called it the kitchen, and a lot of guys. You're smiling, so you've heard of this, I'm sure.
I've heard wind of it.
You've caught wind, but it was we were doing some way out there stuff, working on grow lights and working on these other things. So it was really fun and interesting to be in that kind of anything's possible type environment, to work on so many things and to be growing so fast, right? There was lots. I learned a ton. So I do look back fondly.
How big was your team at Big Ass Fans?
When?
I guess that's what's interesting to me is the ebb and flow of the R&D versus the residential, because those are not necessarily the same team when you say those two things.
No, and that's what happens when you're in a startup company like this. I guess organizationally, things change so rapidly, right? And being nimble. And I was just talking to one of my colleagues at Bullard, who was also a former Big Asser, Stephen Bird, great guy. He's our marketing leader at Bullard. But we were just reminiscing that we learned how to pack light, and I guess there's kind of something to that, really, when you think about it at a different level. But to us, what we were really speaking about was, we had like a notebook a computer and a monitor and a pen, right? When I first got there, I was like, oh, here's my family photos and and that just kind of went out because, and my point of that is that we were just growing so rapidly. We were changing a lot and you had to be nimble, right? You had to be ready to literally pack up and move to a different location. I don't know, every 3 months. But I think I think it's symbolic, if you will, of a startup, right? You've got to wear a lot of hats. You have to be prepared to do a lot of different things and to change with whatever your customers want you to do or whatever the owner is interested in doing differently. So, there's also, I do speak fondly. There was a lot of difficulties too, right? And for me, I've learned to adapt and work well with change, right? Just embrace it and go with it. But for others, it can be a real challenge to have to be going right and then to immediately change the next day and go left. So I know what we talked about is having the flavor of the day, the idea of the day was usually just a day long, and the next day we were kind of focused on something else. But anyway, we embraced that, and it was a wild ride.
Learned a lot, it sounds like. So what I find so interesting about your experience to transition a little bit to Bullard is you were working for this incredibly fast-moving startup, small company, and then you transition to this age-old, well-established, they've got budgets and strategy and tradition. I mean, could you find almost two different brands to work for? But product development is needed everywhere. So it's a huge question. What has been some of the differences in corporate innovation? What did that transition look like?
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned, I had been there before, so I kind of knew what I was getting into. But you're right to point out the fact that on one hand, we were in a startup, rapid growth, grow at all costs type environment to a well-established company, one that had a well-established supply chain and distribution and customer base, et cetera. So I think, what attracted me to Bullard and why I'm there today is that I love what we do, right? I was really attracted to not only the people there, but the purpose, right? So we make products that save people's lives. And at the end of the day, wow, when there's one thing to make ceiling fans and really cool products, but when you think about that, it's extremely gratifying professionally in a whole different way, right? So yeah, great people, great products, well-established company. And I also saw a substantial amount of growth potential. Just it's nice to have worked in companies that have had such a well-established brand. And I know in the startup community, that is such a hard thing to do, is really to establish the brand, establish the recognition, establish your customers. So it's really nice to kind of walk into a scenario where that's been done already and to really focus on the customers and understanding what their problems are and try to solve for them in ways that maybe they've not thought of before. I think one of the things we talk about at Bullard is having a very long vision. It's family owned and operated, sixth generation. Like it's been that way for 123 years, right? It's an environment where there's no end game other than to be around for another 123 years. That's it. It's a very long view. And that's very unique. And I realize that it's not something you see very often. So it provides for quite a contrast in environment and culture and how we think about the business and how we think about growing the business, right? And I've said a few times already intentionally that there was a grow at all costs mentality, right? Our owner at Big Ass wasn't necessarily watching the bottom line. He was watching that top line, and that's what really mattered. But you transition into a well-established business, then you start to think about other metrics that really matter and how you're using those to really drive growth and drive the business.
Talk a little bit about, let's dive into innovation more specifically at Bullard. Again, we've sort of set the stage for you guys have this long vision. You have the luxury of having patience to grow. There's no pressurized growth decisions, but we also, I've been very into the Business Wars podcast lately. If anyone's looking for another one to listen to. You should still listen to this one. But the Wondery puts out it's called Business Wars, and they compare and contrast. Have you heard of it?
No.
So they'll do like Netflix versus Hulu or Uber versus Lyft. The one I just listened to for the comic nerds out there was Marvel versus DC.
Oh,
and
okay.
it goes,
I'm going to listen now.
It goes into the history of kind of these brands competing. But the point is, I listened to the Marvel DC one. DC was top dog for decades, and they just couldn't care less about Marvel. And I believe, if I remember correctly, it was into the 60s, 70s, the scrappy little underdog took him over and has never really looked back. So all that to say, disruption sneaks up on you quickly. And I know that's top of mind for lots of longstanding large companies. So let's talk a little bit about innovation. What's the motivation there? What's the response to risk? Or how do you guys think about corporate innovation?
Yeah, well, you touched on something there that is something we're very aware of. And the reason I'm at Bullard is we had become complacent as it relates to introducing new products or solving our customers' problems. And that's one of the reasons why I came back. Like I mentioned, there was a lot of opportunity, and we have very patient capital. We have a very patient board, very patient CEO, and I hope if you're listening right now, please be patient with me. Now, my point is it gives us time to stop and think and really understand our customers, which is where we really spend a lot of our time. And I like to think of innovation as the intersection of technology and unmet needs, right? Mm-hmm. So I think the technology, in our case, we're not developing new technologies, right? We're integrators. So we knew that we had to really focus on understanding our customers and their needs, and we have a lot of them, right? The safety business is a fairly large business, and we like to think of ourselves as niche players, but they're still pretty broad. So I think we spent a great deal of time over these past few years really trying to get intimate with our customers and really trying to understand their problems and how we can solve for them. And that's really been, and I mentioned this to you before, Liz, offline, but we've been spending a lot of time in our strategic planning right now at the company and really trying to understand where we're really strong. And we've come to realize that, we've got great products, right? Customers really love us. They're really loyal to our brands, but there's so much that we can do to be even more intimate with our customers and to really provide an outstanding experience for them. I mean, just across the whole life cycle of the product or our touch points with our customers. So,
well, I imagine your customers have a pretty intimate relationship with your products, if you will. I mean, it is, as you said, saving their life.
Right.
So you guys have a really unique touch point, as you're saying, with customers.
You're right. And it's crazy. They are very loyal, and even things like hard hats, right? You'll see them around. It's one of the products we make, and you'll see that they.
But to be clear, it's one of the products you guys invented.
We invented it, yes.
We just need to get that shout out abundantly clear.
Not me, but one of our previous owners.
123
That's
years
right.
old.
But it is very personal to them, and in fact, that's why they call it personal protective equipment. But it is personal to them, and it's fun to have customers that are so passionate about what things like this, right? I mean, safety equipment, you could imagine in some cases could be very dull, but like you said, they know it's saving their lives, and it helps them go home to their wife and kids every night. So when we meet with them, they're very open with us and passionate, and that helps a lot, right? It helps us to really understand their problems. It helps us to take our growth objectives of the company and kind of marry those to their problems and the technologies that we're working on, and to really provide for an excellent roadmap for us to follow to meet their needs and to grow the company. So that's just where we've been spending a lot of our time. And it's not we're keenly aware of our competition, right? But we don't have, we're not a publicly traded company. We don't have shareholders that are really trying to sway the business one way or the other, or we're not doing anything that we believe it to be brash, right? It's just not. It's quite the contrast to Big Ass, right? It's a big ship, and we're steering it slowly. We're growing slowly, or I guess at the pace that we want to grow, I should say. And it's I don't know. It's a nice change, I guess. Nice contrast. Yeah.
Do you guys have specific teams formed around, and I know innovation is overused, but R&D or customer discovery, or do you feel like there's a sense of ownership for innovation across the board that's pretty flat?
Yeah, that's a great question. We do have teams that we do have an R&D group. That's part of my responsibilities, research and development, right? We have we have our own sales group, right? So we've got folks that are out there on the front lines with our customers that are very passionate about them and taking care of them. But I guess, although we all have our own responsibilities in innovation and responsibility, it is shared, I would say. A lot of the opportunities that we focus on and invest in are coming from those front lines, right? And what their needs are. And there's cases where someone's asking for a faster horse and we see that and we're like, you probably need a car, actually, right? So, I mean, there's those instances, right, where we're listening, but we may do something a little bit different. Yeah, it is a shared responsibility. And I'll say too about Bullard, that, part of our culture that I love so much, it's a family owned business, and that transcends to everyone. Like, we think of ourselves as a family. So when we think about, and that's, that, I don't know, maybe that's cliche, but it's real. It's true.
Only if it's not true.
Yeah, we
Sure.
we really do look out for one another, and we do think for one another, and we listen to each other. So that's how we operate.
I think what I like about both what you're saying today and things I've heard you say on the Corporate Innovation Roundtable is you guys have such a laser focus on your customer. And I think even you guys view your customers as family to an extent.
Yeah.
And I think that's where ultimately true innovation comes from, is if you have a pulse on what your customer needs, you can pivot accordingly. Even if that's a slow turning of a big ship, you are intimately aware of their needs and where they're going. And I don't know, I think what we want to debunk is this thought that innovation has to only be for tech companies or only if you have access to software developers, when it can be, some of it can be incremental improvement, and we support that kind of innovation. But breakout ideas can happen that aren't necessarily tech-based. A lot of them are these days, to your point, sky's the limit on what we can do with data anymore. But I just think that it's such a great example that really what you have to have is a focus on your customer and the end goal, less on access to tech.
Right. And, I think for us, we understand and acknowledge, if you look across the segments that we operate in at Bullard, where we're the strongest is where we're the closest and most intimate with our customers. And now, granted, we do serve a lot of niche markets, but there is a strong correlation between intimacy with our customers and success, right? The segments that we're not as strong in are the ones that we're further away, right? We're probably relying more on the competition and what they're doing and trying to go tit for tat on products and features and, with those guys. And when we do that, yeah, okay, that works sometimes, but we're not winning there like we are when we're as customer oriented and customer focused in some of these other segments. So that's really, for us, that's really where we're focused right now is understanding those problems, understanding those customers and trying to solve for them.
This is more my own curiosity, but what's like one of your strongest products? Obviously the hard hat is what I think of when I think of you guys.
Oh, yeah.
But when you're like, we're winning on this piece of protective equipment.
Oh, wow. Well, I tell you what, I know that you probably didn't want to go here, but like we've got at Bullard, we have such a broad portfolio of products, right? It's for a small company. We make a lot of stuff. And that really saved our bacon last year. Like, when a lot of there were some segments of our business just did not do well, and others that went gangbusters due to COVID and respiratory protection needs and this type of thing. So I think we probably took that for granted before the pandemic, and now we go, oh, wow, that's very important to have a diverse portfolio of products for this company.
You had fallback items or
Right.
some security blankets.
Right. So last year, our respiratory protection products went crazy. This year, like our thermal imaging cameras, like
Wow.
firefighter products, like those are going gangbusters. So you never know.
Interesting.
You
Yeah.
never know.
So this is kind of transitions into one of the last things I want to talk about. I've really been trying to get into trends with a lot of our guests. I think, first of all, it's what I love reading about. Like where are things going? That's what we love to talk about. But what are some trends you guys are saying? And, I think offline, again, we talked a little bit about COVID. And that can either be what are trends you guys are seeing as a business and how you guys run, or from a product standpoint across the board.
Well, great question. I think, we've learned a lot about ourselves over the past year. It's crazy. You think, 123-year-old company, you probably know everything there is to know about yourself. But we've really learned a lot about ourselves. And I think what we've felt and what we've seen and what we're looking at differently now are our supply chain. And, I think we learned a lot about it and what, we thought of ourselves and pride ourselves in being a lean company. But now we look at it and go, does that make sense, right? Is that the right model for us? And how should we be thinking about supply chain inventory management differently in the grand scheme of things, right? Is that a peanut butter spread across all of our product lines, or should we think differently about this versus that, right? So we're thinking about supply chain differently, and we're thinking about where our customers are choosing to buy differently, right? We're a B2B company, and honestly, we've got a lot of growth opportunity there, right? I'd say that's one innovation that we need to make as a company is being where our customers are choosing to buy and really trying to understand that, right? What we saw over these past several years in a distribution based model is a lot of the stores close down, sales team gets grounded, people are looking for new ways to try on products or try things, and we weren't there for them, right? And we were spending a lot of time on solving for that, right? And being with our customers when they need us and how they want to be with us. Is that a thing? I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's interesting. One of the entrepreneurs we work with really closely, Tony Schmidt, when he's explaining the customer journey, he often talks about Kroger as an example, and that the Kroger customer journey is not when someone walks into the store. It's when they think, oh my goodness, I'm hungry.
Yeah.
And Kroger, I think, is doing an increasingly great job at, they make meal kits now. You can order from home and not even step foot in. But for you guys, I imagine it's not when someone puts on something. It's when they think, when they get scared and think of what do I need, or when they're onboarding a new employee and they need to outfit them out. It's so much earlier than when they're actually needed.
No, that's true. And, I would say that in terms of loyalty, wow. I mean, we've got extremely loyal customers, right, that want to come back and do come back a lot. And I think that's a testament to our products and the services that we provide. But you know what? We're probably not front of mind as often with customers that don't know who we are, right? We're established in certain areas, but when the new guy comes in or, there's a new business that opens, we're not front of mind. So we do have to think, we're going to focus a lot more on that part of the customer journey, right? We do a great job of that, 10 years, when they're with our products. But, understanding who we are and how to find us, getting the right information that they need. Those are areas that, it's funny. It's startups, maybe that's kind of where they're focused on, right? But we're kind of on the other end. We've been there. We've got that established, customer base, and we have to figure out how to be, again, there for our customers and discoverable, and make sure that we have what they're looking for when they need it.
Right. You can have an incredible product. It's got to be accessible to people as well.
If they don't know about it, it doesn't matter. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, and this has been an absolute pleasure. How can people connect with Bullard, find you guys? If these people are listening, who should find you? Are there some firefighters you want to connect with?
If you work in a place where there's safety hazards, come talk to us. You can find us at bullard.com, www.bullard.com, on the World Wide Web.
It's this Internet of Things situation.
Or you can look me up on LinkedIn. Happy to connect with you. Talk to you.
We'll link both of those in the show notes. So again, Landon, thank you so much. This has been a pleasure. We're really excited for people to hear about it, and hopefully have you back sometime.
All right, Liz, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. If you know someone who should be on our show, even if it's you, reach out to us at innovationincubated.com. And while you're on our website, sign up for our newsletter. Lastly, thanks to our sponsor, Apex Software. The right software partner can change everything. So reach out today at apexsoftware.com. Until next time, go team.